Hi guys, and welcome back. I have another case for you today that I have already covered on my podcast, but I wanted to go ahead and film and upload this one to the channel as well. This case hasn't gotten really any coverage whatsoever, and she deserves to have her name out there. She deserves justice. Her family deserves answers. So I have already covered this before, but I wanted to put this up here too because I want to try to spread the word as far and as wide as possible about this case. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Today's case is going to take us to Bighorn County, Montana, one of the largest counties in the state. Most of the county is comprised of the Crow and the Northern Cheyenne reservations. Most importantly, Bighorn County is at the center of a massive crisis. The county has been the setting for an alarming number of cases of missing and murdered Indigenous women in recent years. One of those cases includes Selena Not Afraid, which you may have heard of. Selena's case garnered heavy media attention when she went missing on New Year's Day of this year. She was found 20 days later under suspicious circumstances. Her death was ruled as accidental, which resulted in tremendous public backlash and outcry, but still, no further investigation has been done into her death. Just in Bighorn County alone, there have been 27 cases of missing and murdered Indigenous women in the last decade. The county also has the highest rate of missing and murdered Indigenous people cases in the entire state of Montana. Just in Montana alone, there have been 134 cases of missing and murdered Indigenous women since 2010. Now keep in mind these numbers may be a bit skewed because these numbers are only the cases that are reported. These numbers are only the cases that are taken seriously and entered into the database. Indigenous people make up only 6.7% of the population in Montana, and yet 26% of all missing persons cases. Now, Bighorn County was also the home of Kaysera Stops Pretty Places, whose story we're going to be talking about today. Kaysera Stops Pretty Places was born on August 14th, 2001, to her parents Geraldine Bulltail Stops and Alan Stops. Both sides of her family are members of the Crow, Northern Cheyenne, Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara nations. And apologies if I did not pronounce those quite correctly. Kaysera spent her childhood and her teen years in both Missoula, Montana and Hardin, Montana. She had been attending high school in Hardin. At the time of her disappearance, she had been living with her paternal grandmother, Yolanda Frazier, who was also her legal guardian. Kaysera was incredibly athletic and was involved in numerous different sports, including basketball, track, football, and wrestling. She was also involved in choir and drama, and she performed in many different school productions. She was incredibly kind and caring, and she had a huge heart for animals. She was known to frequently rescue stray animals in need. Now, the events on the day of Kaysera's disappearance are a little bit confusing and a little bit convoluted, so just bear with me. I will try to explain it as best I can. On August 24th, 2019, just 10 days after Kaysera's 18th birthday, she had been hanging out with some friends. According to Kaysera's aunt, Grace Bulltail, has been championing Kaysera's cause from day one. Kaysera had been staying at her other aunt, Priscilia's house, and this is somewhere that she frequently visited and stayed the night. This is where Kaysera was hanging out with one of her friends when her and her friend met up with a couple, a boyfriend and a girlfriend, who also had a young baby. So the four decided to go hang out elsewhere, and the young baby stayed with Priscilia. This is because the mother of the baby, the girlfriend, was another family member of Priscilia's. As a note, the information about the events on the day of her disappearance, this all comes from a video uploaded by Grace Bulltail, and I will link that video in the description because Grace does an excellent job of explaining where Kaysera was, everything that happened, everything that her and her family have heard about that day. I highly recommend watching that video. Again, it will be in the description below. So Kaysera, her friend, and the boyfriend and girlfriend all decided to go to a nearby house, and this house was the boyfriend's family's house. I'm not sure if he was living there or just visiting or what he was doing there. At some point, Kaysera and her friend decided that they wanted to leave for a bit. When they returned, the boyfriend and the girlfriend were in the middle of an argument. At that point, the two girls decided they just wanted to leave again. They didn't want to get involved in this, but the girlfriend wanted to go with them. However, her boyfriend would not allow her to leave. Reportedly, he was physically restraining her from leaving, and this of course escalated the argument even further. The argument continued outside, and witnesses and neighbors around the area reported that it got very, very loud and very heated between the boyfriend and the girlfriend. Instead of leaving, Kaysera and her friend still stayed behind, likely because they didn't want to leave the girlfriend there with the boyfriend who was becoming aggressive. They likely wanted to try to keep her safe from him. At some point during the argument, a cop car apparently drove by, and this startled the group. They likely thought that someone had called the cops on them because things were becoming so heated. So at this point, the group dispersed and ran. Upon coming back to the area where the argument had taken place, Kaysera's friend notices that she's nowhere to be found. So she spends some time looking in the area for Kaysera and calling her name, but with no luck. So she returns to the boyfriend's house to see if maybe Kaysera had made her way back there, but the boyfriend will not allow her inside and will not allow her to search the area around the property. According to Grace's video, the boyfriend then got in his car and chased Kaysera's friend and whoever else was with her. They hid from the boyfriend, and when he finally left them alone, they returned to Persilia's house to see if Kaysera had gone back there, as that was where she'd been staying at the time. But unfortunately, she was not there either. Now, everything that just happened on the night of August 24th, 2019, and going into the early hours of August 25th. So to briefly recap this, because I know that was confusing and I hope you were able to bear with me, Kaysera and her friend were at Persilia's house. Persilia is Kaysera's aunt. The two then meet up with a boyfriend and girlfriend couple, and the four of them decide to go hang out at the boyfriend's house. Kaysera and her friend briefly leave the house, and when they return, the boyfriend and girlfriend are arguing. All of the girls decide that they want to leave, but the girlfriend is unable to leave because her boyfriend is trying to stop her and prevent her from going anywhere. The argument continues outside. It becomes very loud and very heated. A cop car reportedly passes by at some point, which startles the group, so they disperse and run. Upon coming back to the area where the argument took place, Kaysera's friend cannot find her. So she returns to the boyfriend's house to see if Kaysera went back there, but he is not allowing her to come in the house or search the property. He then tries to intimidate her with his car, and when he finally leaves her alone, she returns to Persilia's house to see if Kaysera went back there. But Kaysera is not there either. And again, all of that information comes from Grace Bulltail in a video that she uploaded to YouTube, which is linked below. And again, Grace is Kaysera's aunt, so she's very close to the situation. She's a very, very credible source here. On August 25th, 2019, after hearing what had happened, Kaysera's family tried to report her missing. However, Bighorn County authorities told them that they would have to wait 24 hours before they could file a report. Now, this is something I will reiterate time and time again. You do not have to wait 24 hours to report someone missing. This is a myth. You are allowed to file a missing persons report whenever you feel it is necessary. There is no waiting period. The family was finally able to officially file Kaysera as a missing person on August 27th, 2019. Now, during this waiting period where they were told they would have to wait to file a missing persons report, the family was already conducting their own searches for Kaysera. However, they had no luck. They could find nothing. They couldn't find Kaysera. They couldn't find her phone. They couldn't find any information about where she was or what had happened to her. The information about what happened on August 24th in Grace's video did not come until later on. 2 days after the family filed the report, On August 29th, 2019, a jogger discovered a body in the backyard of a suburban home. This backyard was enclosed by a chain-link fence. And this was just a couple of houses down from where Kaysera was last known to be. There was zero media coverage, even just locally, that a body had been found, despite authorities being well aware that Kaysera was missing. It was later learned that authorities never even notified the media that a body had been found. It was also discovered that authorities never approached Kaysera's family with the information that they had found a body. Again, they knew that Kaysera was missing. They had found a body. This would be pertinent information for the family, even if it turned out not to be her. On September 1st, 2019, Kaysera's mother Geraldine went with Priscilla to Bullis Mortuary to see whether they could try to identify the body and see if maybe it was Kaysera. However, when they got there, they were told that it was not Kaysera, and they were not given the opportunity to see for themselves. According to a timeline of this investigation on Pipestem Law's website, I will link that below, Priscilla had actually been at the scene when the body was found, and she tried to identify the body there, thinking it could have been Kaysera, but she was not allowed to go anywhere near the body. Almost 2 weeks later, on September 11th, 2019, the family was finally told that the body that had been found was indeed Kaysera. Now again, her family was never interviewed about her disappearance. Her family was never allowed the opportunity to possibly identify the body. Nothing was done. The authorities never approached the family whatsoever to make any effort in this investigation. Kaysera's grandmother Yolanda and her father Alan even said that they found out through family, not the authorities, that Kaysera had been found. The location where Kaysera was found was directly next to a busy intersection in a very lively, active neighborhood. Now, keep in mind, Kaysera was missing for 5 days before she was found. And when she was found, she was in plain sight. So the family is expected to believe that the whole time she was missing, that entire 5 days, when they were searching every nook and cranny of that area for her, that she was just there all along and they missed her. The scene where Kaysera was found was never cordoned off as a crime scene, and this means that any potential evidence that could have been taken from the scene was compromised and contaminated. The scene was never secured. Any evidence that could have been found would be inadmissible. Allegedly, authorities never interviewed the homeowners of the home where Kaysera was found. They also apparently never interviewed the jogger who found her. The family actually talked to the jogger themselves, and he said that he witnessed police taking Kaysera's phone out of her pocket, and he suggested to them that they charge it to try to see if they could find her family and identify her. Authorities never did this. It was Kaysera's family who turned on her phone and went through it, trying to find any information they could about where she had been and what had happened to her. On September 12th, Geraldine went back to Bullis Mortuary and was told by the owner, Terry Bullis, who was also the county coroner, that in order for Kaysera to be returned to her family, she would have to be cremated. Cremation goes entirely against her family's cultural beliefs, but Geraldine was worried that if she didn't agree to this, Kaysera may not be returned to them. So she agreed to it, and Terry Bullis immediately accepted payment from her. Now, at this point, other family members hadn't even arrived in town yet after hearing the news, but Terry Bullis ordered the cremation immediately. Now, at the time that the cremation was ordered, Kaysera was actually still at the crime lab in Billings, Montana, undergoing autopsy and testing. On September 16th, Yolanda reached out to a woman named Melissa Schlichting, and this is the Deputy Attorney General for the state of Montana. Melissa told Yolanda that there is no waiting period to file a missing persons report in the state of Montana. She also told Yolanda that because Kaysera was under 21, her case should have been top priority. That same day, Kaysera's family arrives at Bullis Mortuary to attend Kaysera's visitation, but when they arrive, her remains are not even there yet. The Bullis family tells them that the remains will be there soon, and then soon after, Kaysera is still not there. The family is then told that the mortuary will be closing soon and that Kaysera's remains may not even be there the next day for the funeral. However, Kaysera's family refuses to leave and her remains finally arrive in time. Upon speaking with Terry Bullis, again the county coroner, the family is told that the autopsy report would not be complete for another 3 to 4 weeks. They're also told that when the autopsy and toxicology came back, they would show lethal doses of alcohol and or drugs in Kaysera's system. So just to clarify this, the county coroner is telling the family before any results have come back yet that he knows the cause of death. He knows it has to do with alcohol or drugs. Now, again, authorities never interviewed the family about Kaysera's disappearance. They knew nothing about her lifestyle, and authorities who were supposed to be investigating her death were throwing around egregious assumptions like this. On September 18th, Yolanda and Alan deliver their first notarized request to the Bighorn County Attorney's Office for all reports regarding Kaysera's case. Authorities are not making any effort to communicate with the family about Kaysera's case. Her family has to make a tremendous effort to get anyone to speak with them about her case. On September 19th, 3 weeks after Kaysera was found, the family is finally able to get an audience with the lead investigator on the case, and that is Captain Mike Foose of the Bighorn County Sheriff's Office. Upon meeting with them, Captain Foose did not even know who the family was. He thought they were there about a phone call earlier in the day about a cell phone having been found on the side of the road. He was completely unaware that this was the family of the girl who had just been found in someone's backyard. According to the timeline on Pipestem Law's website, Foose claims that the family had never been contacted or communicated with about Kaysera's case because the sheriff's office was so busy with other cases. He also claimed that the scene where she was found was never cordoned off as a crime scene because if the investigator on the case is first on the scene, it doesn't need to be cordoned off. I have literally never heard this before in my life. Captain Foose also told the family that the first investigator on the case, Jerry Middlestead, was off the case within the first week because he allegedly was being transferred. I've also seen it reported that he recused himself from the case. However, I could not find a clear answer on this. Just like Terry Bullis, Captain Foose claims that when her toxicology report came back, it would show high levels of alcohol in her system, insinuating that alcohol had something to do with her death. And again, at this point, her toxicology report had not come back yet. This part is quite infuriating. Around this time, it's also learned that at some point, Terry Bullis had taken Kaysera from the crime lab in Billings, Montana, and brought her back to his mortuary. She had to be returned to the crime lab with a police escort because he had taken her before her autopsy and toxicology were all complete. Also on September 19th, Kaysera's mother Geraldine and Cedar Bulltail met with Bighorn County Attorney Jay Harris. Jay Harris, according to Pipestem Law's timeline, says he is actually unsure who is leading the investigation due to, quote, turmoil in the sheriff's office, end quote. He also says that Terry Bullis has a tendency to jump to alcohol or natural causes as official causes of death. Still up to this point, almost a month after Kaysera was found, her family has still not been approached or interviewed by authorities. They have taken all of the initiative to communicate with authorities about her case. On September 23rd, Yolanda is contacted by Melissa Schlichting, again the Deputy Attorney General for the state of Montana. Melissa informed Yolanda that Kaysera was actually never filed as a missing person by the authorities, and she was not entered into the database. So first, the family is falsely told by Bighorn County authorities that they have to wait 24 hours to file a missing persons report. They did that, and when they finally filed an official report, authorities never took that seriously, they never filed it, and they never entered Kaysera into the missing persons database. On November 20th, 2019, almost 3 months after Kaysera was found, Grace contacted the Montana State Crime Lab in Missoula. She was told by the crime lab that the autopsy report would take another 12 to 16 weeks to complete. Months before, the family had been told it would only take another 3 to 4 weeks. The crime lab also told Grace that Kaysera's autopsy was conducted on August 27th, even though Kaysera had not even been found until August 29th. Grace later learned that the autopsy was in fact conducted on August 30th. Also, here we are, 3 months after Kaysera was found, and her family has still not been interviewed or approached regarding her case. Also up to this point, they have also not received any of the reports they requested regarding her case. Also around this time, it's learned that the investigation into Kaysera's disappearance and death was halted within the first week due to a, quote, personnel issue. And again, this was after the original investigating officer either was transferred or recused himself. Again, couldn't find a clear answer on that. So remember the multiple times that the investigating authorities said that Kaysera's cause of death would have to do with alcohol or drugs? Her toxicology came back and there were no drugs in Kaysera's system and very, very low levels of alcohol, nowhere near lethal. Grace actually wrote a letter to the U.S. Department of Justice Lady of Justice listening session. In this letter, it's learned that just days before Kaysera went missing, she uploaded a video to social media that depicted her 15-year-old brother being physically assaulted by police. The officers involved were allegedly reprimanded after an investigation conducted by the U.S. Attorney's Office Civil Rights Division. It was also learned that one of the officers involved in this incident had been an investigating officer on Kaysera's case. And again, that information also comes from the timeline on Pipestem Law's website. I will have that linked in the description below. There has been very little to no investigation into Kaysera's incredibly suspicious death. Her family was never interviewed about her case. They were never approached regarding her case. They had to make all of the effort to communicate with authorities about Kaysera's case. They were not even notified that Kaysera was in fact found and positively identified until 2 weeks after she was found. This wouldn't be quite so alarming if her family hadn't been so active in trying to find her, and if her family hadn't been so proactive in trying to identify the body that they knew had been found. Her family was right there the whole time, willing and able to help with this investigation, and they were repeatedly written off and ignored. On top of all of that, investigating authorities continuously made reckless and presumptuous statements about Kaysera before they had any information whatsoever. None of this is okay. The way that her case was investigated is not okay. The way the family was written off and had to make all of the effort themselves is not okay. Kaysera's case has now finally been classified as suspicious, however, no further investigation has been conducted. No more evidence collected, no more information shared. This is yet another young Indigenous woman who disappeared and was found under suspicious circumstances, whose death is not being investigated and not taken seriously. This is not okay. I will link the Justice for Kaysera Facebook page below in the description. Please give that a like and a follow and support this family in their fight for answers and their fight for justice. Also in the description below, I will link Pipestem Law's webpage about Kaysera's case. On that page, they provide a full timeline of everything that has happened so far. They do an excellent job of putting together all of the facts and laying it out in one place. If you have any information regarding Kaysera Stops Pretty Places and her disappearance and suspicious death, I will put a number on the screen right here for you to call with that information. Please do so. Kaysera's family have been the ones fighting for answers and fighting for justice from day one. They deserve better than this. Kaysera deserves so much better than this. Again, thank you so much for watching. Please like this video, subscribe, share this video, get the word out there. This happens far too often. This is not okay. The disappearances and deaths of Indigenous people are important. It needs to be taken more seriously. This is a crisis. Let's help to end it. Thank you so much for watching again, and thank you so much for listening if you listen to the podcast on another platform. I'm going to continue filming and uploading cases that I have covered on my podcast and put them here on the channel. Starting on January 15th, I will have new cases to cover here and new stories to be telling you. I'll see you in the next video.